One of the best parts of Football Manager is finding a great young player and turning him into a superstar at your club. But how exactly do you get the best young players to come into your club through your youth intake? We're going to be having a look in this video at the top tips for improving the youth intake at your club and hopefully getting yourself a golden generation. Now, of course, there is never any guarantee of getting a golden generation at your club, but following these tips should at least give you the best possible chance of doing so, and at the very least should consistently get you good youth players coming in through your youth intakes. Now, the first thing you can do, and it does have quite a heavy weighting on the type of players you're going to get come through your youth intake and how good they're going to be, is improving your club's reputation. Now, if you want to know what your club's reputation is, when you're on the homepage, if you just click your club name, it will bring you over to this page. It's the club info page, and you can see here at the top it does have your club reputation. So at Chelsea they've got 4.5 stars. Now, how do you go about improving that reputation and turning into a very reputable club that players are going to want to come to? It's very simple. Win things. You're going to want to win as much as possible, and that isn't just individual matches. It's great winning 5-0 against Man United once in a league season with, let's say, Chelsea, but if you're consistently going on and winning the league, FA Cups, Champions League, if you're a smaller club, maybe getting to the latter stages of the Champions League and just slowly improving your overall standing within the footballing world, then players are going to naturally want to come to you, and better players are going to naturally want to come to you. It does make sense when you think about it. If you're a youth player and you've got the option of going to, I don't know, your local side, so for me, let's say Exeter, who are in Sky Bet League 2, if I've got the option of going there, or I've got the option of going to Chelsea, if both those clubs have offered me a contract, I'm going to go to Chelsea, probably. I mean, there's some considerations to that, considering Exeter I'd probably play, and Chelsea would probably loan me out to Vitesse in Holland. But normally you go to Chelsea because they're a much more reputable club. You're going to earn more money as a player. You're more likely to win top club honours such as the Champions League, the Premier League, whereas Exeter City, you might get to the playoffs and then you're probably going to flounder in the final and remain in the Sky Bet League 2, as Exeter do tend to do. So that is the first thing you can do, is improve your club reputation. That's just going to be down to you as a football manager when you're playing FM22, getting your tactics right, getting your signings right, and just overall winning things, which is what we're all here for. Why else play Football Manager if you're not going to be the best manager on the planet? The next couple of things that you need to look at are your junior coaching and your youth recruitment. Again, if you want to see where they are, when you're on this page, so on the club info page, if you press facilities, you'll get a long list of all of your facilities, and both of those things are in here. So having a look at junior coaching first, we can see at Chelsea they've got exceptional academy coaching, and as well as that, just below you'll see the youth recruitment, which is excellent youth recruitment. Youth recruitment is basically how big your scope is as a club. So using Exeter City, club based in Devon again, if your youth recruitment at Exeter City is quite low, then you may only get players from Exeter and the very local surrounding area through your youth intake, because globally that's where you're reputable and your net, so to speak, is only cast as far as Exeter and its surrounding places. If maybe you improved your youth recruitment a little bit, then you might get players from a bit of a larger range. So now maybe as well as Devon, you're going to get stuff from Cornwall, Somerset, maybe the Midlands at a push, stuff that's a bit further afield. So now you're intaking players from a larger geographical area. And as you improve that, that is going to go up. So then maybe you improve it again, you might get players from all over England and the UK in general. And then if you really improve it to maybe the point like Chelsea have with excellent or exceptional youth recruitment, then you're going to get players from a very vast area. So maybe you will start getting more international players. Maybe you will have gone and found that 13-year-old that's wandering around in France and is an exceptional footballer, or maybe even someone from even further afield than that. So essentially, having your youth recruitment as good as possible just allows you to mathematically be more likely to find a wonder kid. If you're a club like Exeter City and you're only scouting Exeter and the surrounding 30 miles to your club, you've only got maybe a smaller pool of players to actually find a wonder kid in, where if you're Chelsea, you can scout the entire world, and that gives you every person who plays football football, and as such you're much more likely to find a wonder kid in the entire world, at least one, than you are in maybe a population of 100 to 200,000 people, mathematically, it just makes it a lot more likely and puts the odds in your favour of getting that wonder kid through your youth intake. Now, junior coaching is basically the level of coaches for, let's call them, in your invisible teams. So the teams that you don't actually interact with and you can't see on Football Manager and on FM22. So those are maybe your under 13s, under 14 clubs that you can't actually see, but they are there at your club, just invisible to you as a Football Manager. It's a bit like looking at your staff tab over here. This is for Chelsea's senior squad, and I have done nothing to decide. This is an actual save. Honestly, I don't employ coaches that bad for a Premier League club, but if you were looking at this, you kind of be able to see how good your coaches are compared to the rest of the league. And the junior coaching essentially does that, but on an invisible level. So it is the coaches that are going to be looking after your youth players before they are taken into your senior squad. And by senior squad, I mean the ones that you can see here. So when you get your youth intake, you're seeing a player for the first time when they are 15, maybe 16, and going to go into your under 18s or under 23 squad, but they have already been at your club for a little while, and they have been being coached by the coaches, and those coaches are the ones that we're talking about here that are affected by your junior coaching. So essentially, the junior coaching is the quality and level of the coaches for your youth players before they enter the squad that you can actually see on FM22. So like all things, you can come over to the club vision screen and you can ask your board to make some improvements. So for example, for the junior coaching, if you went into finance, you'd be able to increase the junior coaching budget. We can't actually do that at Chelsea because I assume we are at the highest level. And for the recruitment, you can go into networking and you can just improve the youth recruitment, and that will make a request to your board to improve your facilities and hopefully sort of largen that net we were talking about at your club. The next thing that's super important for your youth intakes is your youth facilities. So we can see at Chelsea we've got state-of-the-art youth facilities, and essentially what the youth facilities are the facilities that your youth players are going to be using for training. And again, this affects the players before you actually see them in FM22, so when they're still part of that invisible network within your club. So your under 14s, your under 13s, they're going to be using these youth facilities. So they don't use the training facilities that the rest of the players that you can see use. They use these ones, and you just want them to be as good as possible. Again, you can just pop over to the board and ask them to improve this. Obviously, this is all going to depend on the stature of your club. You can't really go into a Vanarama North or South club and expect to have state-of-the-art youth facilities, because it is just not going to happen. But you do want to be improving them as much as your club will allow you to, because over time this is then going to affect your youth intake directly, because obviously those players are already there training at your club and they're eventually going to be intaken into your main club playing staff, so into your under 18s and under 23. So you want them, before they get to that point to be part of the youth intake, you want them to have been training at as high a level as possible with the best facilities possible to make them the best players possible. Now, the next thing you can do that will directly affect your youth intakes is to hire a very effective, very good head of youth development. So Chelsea's head of youth development is Neil Bath, and there's a few things you're going to want to have a look at when you are hiring a head of youth development for your club. The first one again is reputation. So for your head of youth development, you can see that's up here. Neil Bath has a 3.5-star reputation, so it is pretty decent. And the reason that the reputation is going to affect it is much the same as the club's reputation. If you're a youth player and you have the chance to maybe go and train or work under a former player. So for example, if you were at Chelsea using them again and your head of youth development was Frank Lampard, or you could go to Man United but their head of youth development is some nameless guy with 1-star reputation that you've never heard of, I think naturally you would probably go to Chelsea just because of the prestige of the guy that is the head of youth development. So their reputation is important because of that, really. Players are much more likely to come over to a club if they're working with someone who has a good standing within the game rather than some unknown entity that they've never heard of before. Now, the next thing you're going to want to look at when you're looking at your head of youth development is the personality. Now, we can see Neil Bath has got a driven personality, and that's not bad. But, you know, if you can get a head of youth development that is maybe a professional or a model citizen, then he's going to naturally sort of bring in players that have the same sort of personality, because you've got to remember your head of youth development is the guy that's sort of picking which players are going to go through your youth intake. He's going and having a look at maybe the ones that are around the club and going, yeah, you'll be good enough for Chelsea, we'll bring you in. And he's more likely to be choosing players that are similar to his personality. If he's got a professional personality, he's going to want to bring in professional players for your club. And as a result of that, you're then going to get players with a professional personality come through your youth intake, which is one of the better personalities in Football Manager, and one that you're probably going to want to sort of build the core of your team around if it's possible for you to do so. And the other thing when you've got a head of youth development you're going to want to have a look at is their preferred formation. So Neil Bath has got a preferred formation 4-2-3-1 wide. Now that kind of suits Chelsea's way of playing, at least before Tuchel, because now we're playing with wing backs. But the whole point of the preferred formation is it's going to influence what sort of players they're going to bring in, because they're more likely to bring in players that are going to fit within that formation. For a 4-2-3-1 wide, Neil Bath's more likely to bring in left backs and right backs, but probably not a left wing back or a right wing back, because they don't fit within that formation. It also sort of influences the amount of players you're going to get in each position, because obviously in a 4-2-3-1 wide formation there's only one striker, so maybe you're going to get less strikers than midfielders, let's say, or attacking midfielders. Whereas if you were playing a 4-2-4, at which point you've got two strikers, your head of youth development is going to try and bring through more strikers for that formation, because obviously it plays with two rather than one, and he's going to want to bring in players that are going to fit within that formation and give you enough players and squad depth for each position. So it will have an effect based on that, and you kind of want to make sure you keep an eye on that, because you don't want to employ someone who's going to bring through lots of wing backs if you never intend to play with wing backs, or, you know, lots of centre attacking midfielders when actually you don't play with one, because that's going to be very, very annoying. And the worst thing that could happen is the wonder kid that comes through is a left wing back when you don't play with one, and you've kind of either then got to sell them on and miss out on your wonder kid, or you've got to change your entire formation that maybe you've won the league with twice, and now it all goes a little bit wrong. The other things that are going to affect your youth intake are things that are maybe not directly affected just by your club, but more the country that your club is in. So those things are basically the youth level within your country, and also the reputation of football within that country as well. So to explain the youth level part, that's kind of if you have a country with a very good youth level and lots of clubs with lots of good facilities. So I'm thinking maybe sort of your England's, lots of your European countries, but also stuff like your Brazil, your Argentina, those countries that we know consistently bring through and produce wonder kids. Those guys are more likely to produce those wonder kids through your youth intakes, just based on the fact that they have a good youth level and good facilities overall within the country. So there's more likely, if we're thinking back to what I was mentioning at the start of the video, if you're casting a net over the whole country and the whole country produces fairly good footballers, then you're more likely to be able to get one of those footballers to come up through your youth ranks and through your youth intake. The other thing that I mentioned then is sort of the reputation of football within your nation, and that kind of makes sense as well. So to think of an example, we'll use the United States of America. Within the USA, maybe football isn't the main sport played there. I'm not actually sure what the main sport is. Is it baseball? Is it American football? I don't know, but it definitely is not soccer. Soccer might have some sort of standing within America, but it's probably not the top sport that is chosen by young players and young kids in America. And as such, you're less likely to get American players through your youth intake, or if you're playing as an American club, you're less likely to get a wonder kid. And that's purely just based on mathematics. Because football isn't the main sport within that country, there's just less youth players to choose from. And that's because maybe they're off playing hockey or baseball or American football or doing ice skating, whatever it is in the country. If they're not playing football, they can't come through a youth intake, so there's just mathematically less players to choose from, and as such, you're mathematically less likely to get a wonder kid. Maths in a Football Manager video, who knew? Now, the interesting thing within Football Manager this year is that Sports Interactive have said that those things are dynamic. And essentially what that means is that you can see a nation develop its youth level over the course of a save. And essentially that's going to work a lot like the club reputation that we mentioned at the start of the video. In that if you take a European country that maybe doesn't produce a lot of wonder kids, and you grab one of their clubs and you improve them a lot, and you start getting to Champions League, you start maybe the first couple of seasons, you get into the group stages, then you get into the latter stages, and you're slowly improving the reputation of that club, you're kind of going to drag the rest of the country along with it, especially if you then manage to maybe get a couple of other clubs sort of following on with you and improving in order to keep up with you. You're going to improve the reputation of the entire country. And what's going to happen when you do that is the youth level is going to go up within the country, and all of a sudden, because of the increased reputation of that nation, you're more likely to see a wonder kid come through, because younger people within that country are more likely to come and want to play football. If we had, I don't know, for example, Serbia go and win the World Cup next year, then all of a sudden you'd probably get a lot more Serbian players come through. Maybe you'd be more likely to get a Serbian wonder kid come through, because more players would all of a sudden be interested in football just based on its nation's achievements and the clubs within it, etc, etc. So again, it's just a case of mathematics and the reputation of that nation. Now, following these tips will by no means guarantee that you'll get a golden generation every time you have a youth intake, but it should at least allow your club to get more consistent youth intakes with players that are capable of reaching your first team. And if you do follow all of these tips and you get all of your facilities up to the best level possible, your nation's reputation up to the best level possible, then eventually you will, I promise, find the next Cristiano Ronaldo in FM22. Disclaimer, I can't actually guarantee that you'll get the next Cristiano Ronaldo, but your youth intakes will definitely be improved. If you have enjoyed today's video and you found some value in it, please do drop a like down below on the video. It does really help out with the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe as well to follow all the content on the channel. As always though guys, thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed this video, why not have a look at this one next?